Hello, fabulous faces. It is your host for Glitter on My Tips, Trixie Valentine. Wow. It's funny. I'm always wanting a sound system for this, like, so that way it sounds hype, but I got to make my own. Thank you all for joining us today. It's going to be juicy today due to recent articles and news, but we'll get into that in a second. I will say my lovely co-host Alanya could not join me today. She was not feeling well, and everyone deserves rest. And so please rest, girl. We got you. But that does not mean we won't have an excellent show today. So within here for the reminders for those, Glitter on My Tips is a podcast that talks about the leadership, the business side, and professionalism of drag. And of course, our tips and stuff today are always coming from the book that I published last year, Tipping is a Must, found on Amazon. Now, with that in mind, all of that stuff, I want to bring in our guest today. I absolutely love her. She was a last minute pull in, mostly because I'm desperate. So if you know people who want to be on the show, let me know. Not that we're desperate for people, but just someone had to back out, and that is okay. It happens. But for this next individual, she is fairly new to drag. I believe she's been doing it for at least 2 years. So to me, in drag years, that means she's still a baby, but she's actually my baby. And I want to introduce the one, the only, Asia Vuitton Spice.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Hey, girl. Tell us. Okay, so I know who you are, but tell everyone watching who you are.
But do you?
I don't, actually. I don't. The only thing I know is you like a pair of chopsticks.
Right. We had each other at Chopsticks and white rice. So my name is Asia Vuitton Spice. Like Jake said, I have been doing drag for just close to coming on 2 years now. I think that's about right. We first met at Lie Coming Out, the very first Lie Coming Out Pride for Williamsport and the surrounding area of Lycoming County. And I also met Jake's brother as well. So it was my first time meeting both of them, and it was an absolute pleasure. And that's kind of when we hit it off. I think that was my very first show with Trixie. And then after the new year came, that was my very first actual show with Trixie in her own business. Hello business.
My business.
At one of our favorite places, Brewski's, my favorite hat.
That's right. You're wearing some merch from there, and they absolutely eat you up there. I will say, Lycoming, for those who don't know who are watching, it's Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere. But I will say, you are one of the drag queens who were like freshly new in a very political time. And I don't want to get too far in what political time for drag is, but that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. But I will say that you are a favorite. You are a crowd favorite at Brewski's and a few other places. You really, like, your background in cheerleading and everything really has paid off into like being able to buck and twirl and really do it. But I think my favorite part of your drag and why I'm so excited to see you is it's different. Like, you are new, you're 2 years in, but you bring such an element of camp and excitement at the same time. So I have to give it out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I appreciate that. I try not to take myself too seriously. So the camp side is like once in a while to break, from trying to be super serious all the time. I'm a big queen, so I certainly am not no skinny little thing at all. So I can't pretend that I'm that skinny because I certainly don't look it.
I mean, you're just muscular. You're like that girl that has these broad shoulders, and like you gave us Trade. For those who don't know, Trade is like you might want to, the good looking one. Yeah. That's you got that. You stop it. You really stop it. You're like part of the
giving Trucker
to set now. Like I'm like, it looks like here. This is incest or something.
Right.
And
look,
So anyway, I want to just say hello to everyone who joined us. We have a few people on today. We have our favorites, Sierra and Amanda. Thank you for always coming and support us. So I want us to actually get to a point of where we're going to be today. But so I want us to actually get to why we're doing this tip, and then we'll get to this tip. So, for those who didn't see in recent articles that happened this week, I believe, no, last week, because it's Monday. Ugh, time flies. We always have to do this on a Monday. I'm not sure why. And there was a drag show that got canceled that was down in Schuylkill County, literally because it was an all-age drag show. Anyone can go, and it was rejected because of like the religious beliefs of the Catholic Church or whatever it might be. I will say anything that has to do with religion related to the thing, I just kind of roll my eyes automatically. So that's where we're coming today, because if you have tipping as a must, there is a tip in there specifically for this that we haven't covered. In Asia, I'm so happy you get to cover this with me. And the tip today, it is tip number 98, almost 100, but not quite. And it is drag shows are not harmful. Where have I heard this before? Drag can be for everyone to watch, enjoy, and experience. Drag can be regulated depending on the type of audience. Drag is an expressive art form that people do in various ways, and just overall be open-minded. So, Aisha, what do you feel? What are you thinking when you hear this tip?
Absolutely. So for me, with my background with coaching and working with kids a lot, when it comes to cheer, like it's very regulated. So I understand this from another side as well. So like even in cheer gyms, like we do our best to protect kids from profanity, et cetera, anything that's inappropriate like that. That's just one thing that we always do. So that's a mindset I always have. So I'm very on top of like, if you know prior to going to a show that you know that there's going to be kids. For me, I'm always going to try to make, if there is kids at an audience that I go to, I just like to hold myself a little bit more professional, just because I'm already in that kind of light of already looked up to as a coach. So I just constantly always have that in the back of my head about trying to be very censored when it comes to stuff like that, especially, and especially with that Disney theme that they had. So that was really good that they did come up with something that was kid friendly. So I do appreciate that. I do also know that it's sometimes you don't always know until you get there that there's kids. So it's a hit or miss type of situation. But I also did not know that there was any policies or like laws regarding with the whole church part of it, where it was I saw it on the news about how like no matter how, or it was like a year or two after, if a church or something is not in business, like I didn't know that was a thing either when I watched the article about it on the news. Like that was a surprise to me. I didn't know it was like a holy law type of situations of what it sounded like. So I didn't even know that today was a thing either. So it's very interesting to me. That was something I learned as well. So I had no idea that was a thing.
I always think it's interesting. So I think the reason why I'm happy to have this conversation with you is because you're new in drag. So like your creativity to me, when it comes to censored, I've been doing this for 10 years now, since I just celebrated my 10-year dragversary. And I've been around the corner in the block. And so when I'm constantly thinking of my audience, I already have the experience to be like, oh, we're not doing that, right? And you have somewhat the same experience in that sense of cheer that you bring to drag, because there's so many times that you sit there and go, should I be doing this number? I remember you calling me like, is this appropriate? Can we do this? And you're making, and like that censorship is so important. And when I think about these conversations, it's like we just hear the word drag and it's automatically put into this place of it's going to be adult entertainment, it's going to be stripping, it's going to be all these like facets that can be part of drag, but there's also those other elements of drag where it's like it's not literally like we dress up as princesses, like we literally dress up as kings and queens, we literally are just like throwing glitter at people, and it's a different magical moment. And so even for you did a number that I think could be in any audience, which was your Bring It On number. Just like, it's cute, it's high in energy. Absolutely. And And when I think about this type of situation, I mean every person out there who's trying to get involved, trying to do their own shows, they definitely have to read the fine print. They have to ask who's in charge, what are the
Yeah.
things that are involved, even town ordinances, and that's hard to do. That's why there's so much pullback, especially since last year when drag in different small communities become on a rise. And so this is just another situation where I think we're sitting here where people are not fully understanding the situation, because there was a quote specifically in there on how the church literally says that drag in front of kids goes against their belief in dignity of humans. But I'm like,
Mhm.
what are we then? if we're
Right.
not humans, then what are we?
Right. Yeah, that I still I'm blown away because I never ever have heard of that before either. So it was really surprising to me, like they still have that control over a space after not being a business or whatever. It's crazy to me. I never knew that anything like that existed. So it's I feel really bad, especially for those performers that never got the chance to perform there, for sure, because it really does kind of suck when, you know, the opportunity you had to bring whatever you were going to bring, if it was new or a new performance or whatever, you know, that was taken from you because of something that it was not, you know, unforeseen, not under your control. But yeah, I mean, we things have been changing so drastically over the years too, and going along with this. It's like when all of a sudden, when did that start? The whole all of a sudden the drag ban, was that like 2 years ago or 3 years ago? It
No,
just like it just happened after
it was
2020.
last year because it was when Tennessee, the state of Tennessee and Florida
Yes, okay,
started
it
getting
was
really
last year.
into the thing. Yeah, it was literally a year ago. And Tennessee was the first state, and I believe Florida ended up passing one as well. So there were two specifically for drag. But I think it calls into question all the time of like what's an art form and what's not. And the reason why I am fascinated by some of your opinion as well is because cheer is not that far off from drag, right? Like we
Right.
and it is not really drag because there's a difference, but there's makeup, there's a performance,
Hmm.
there's music, there's
Yeah.
outfits, there's costuming, and you've been I believe you nationally competed, so
Yes. Yep. Yep.
you have the background and knowing like you're not just like when people think of cheer, like you showed me videos and I'm just like wow. And then when I compare something like that, I'm like drag is not too far off from that, depending on who you're going to watch, right?
Right.
Depending on
Absolutely.
what the show is and depending on what that rating is. And so I definitely want to call attention to, you know, how people are treated. And it's literally like, in my opinion, this is the situation. I'm like, you know, it's literally just because there's a queer factor to it. And there's an uncertainty. And so in your experience, have you ever faced anything like that? Or have you ever addressed anything like that?
So for me, I guess the best way I could answer that, like coming from cheer, as like a background type of filler for that, is cheer itself, especially outside of high school. High school is high school, you know. It's hard, especially to be who you are in high school. So a lot of us, unfortunately, push ourselves down until we get out and then experience the world and go to college, etc. Um, but when it comes to All Star, that's something outside of a school. So just like a drag family and just like the community of drag, like when you go into cheer, it's so welcoming. Everybody we all love each other. We work so well together, especially for, you know, everybody in our, you know, LGBT plus community. It's very welcoming because it's one of those things where it's got, like you said before, where it's almost similar to drag: dance, choreography, stunts, flexibility. It's like a circus. Outfits are always on point, you know, like it's almost like a mini little Broadway show, but you know, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Absolutely. So for me, I can say outside of cheer and like the drag community, yes, I have experienced that stigma, or that, you know, it's not acceptable type of thing, if that makes sense. But when you're in the all-star cheer, you know, all of us together, we're just a community. So we are teammates, we compete together, we just make it work because we're just like drag and like RuPaul's Drag Race. We're all trying to get that crown, honey.
I mean, I may have a few, so I say I've
Right.
gotten a few pounds.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I also specifically want to actually talk to that youth mentality and perspective because it's there's something to be said when we as a society start saying this is bad for our youth because of a bias, because then that's where individuals learn prejudice and discrimination and hate towards something because they're told it's bad instead
Right.
of taking their time to understand it. And the perfect example was that I literally can think of was this past weekend. I competed for a local charity event, Dancing with the Stars, Wilkes-Barre.
Woo!
And I
Winner.
in drag, right? So I'm competing at the same level all these other people are, and really the difference in our performance was I was the only drag style type of performance. Like I was in drag, I put my dancer in drag, and we even did a number that was inspired by a lot of the routines that I've done in drag to help play to the strengths because I'm not here to learn the tango, sorry, but but what was all said and done was we had a Kids Choice Award where all the kids in the audience, all the youth in the audience, so you had to literally be 17 and under to vote. And I won that. The drag queen won the Kids
Won
Choice
that.
Award.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I sit in a situation like this and I'm like, literally, the performance, the style, the act I gave literally made the children happy and joyful and excited. So I'm just sitting here. I'm like, if it's so harmful to children, what is the harmful part? Because there was no, it was the same style of dances that three other competitors did, and we were the ones that the kids were like, we love this. And what makes me love that award more was afterwards, so many youth came up and were just like, you're inspiring. Right. You made me feel like I wasn't alone in this world. I had two of them also then hug me and say, like, you bring such a positive energy. I want to carry that with me. And these are people from the ages of like 9 and 16, I'm going based off of the way they look. I feel like I'm terrible at guessing kids' ages. But I think in a situation like that, to quickly just judge somebody and be like, you're harmful when they can't even say what's harmful about it. But yet the population they're saying we're harming is
Right.
inspired and loves us and watches us.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
it's very conflicting.
You're absolutely right too. And that's why I love you so much, because you have such a, an extensive reach towards so many corners of our small little rural Pennsylvania area. And you have such a positive, like, what's the word? You're just a positive role model in this area. And that's what everybody loves. And I think in general, I think as a whole, um, I know religion unfortunately sometimes separates us more than holds us together. Um, I think my biggest thing that I've realized over the years too is I feel if you can judge somebody before knowing them, I feel like that's, to me, is sort of a type of sin. To me, is how can you judge somebody else when you haven't stepped up, like that. This is from Godspell, but it's walk a mile in somebody's shoes and then throw a pebble in your shoe and see how it feels, or something along those lines. But how can you judge somebody else without knowing them and everything that they've done, especially you, because you have so many talents, you have so many, awards and things that you have won, just like the Dancing with the Stars, like, well, very, very well deserved. Little plug in. But yeah, it's just, it's very hard for me sometimes to sit and watch people act that way or carry themselves that way with just that judgment of somebody else. To me, when it comes to religion, a higher power has a more judgment than you do. It's not your job to judge other people. So that's the way I've always looked at it. Somebody else is going to judge you, where you go, or where, that's not anybody else's job. So that's just the way I've looked at it. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm very happy that you do the work that you do, because it's very inspiring to others, just like those kids, and that makes me really happy to hear too. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Thanks, babe.
You're welcome. Okay, next host.
I definitely thank you for that, and thank you for everyone in the chat. So there's actually quite a few people whose kids have actually watched me, right? Like, so I'll show up Heidi. Heidi, thank you so much. I'm glad I get to be called the Rainbow Lady. I kind of want that on a t-shirt now. So
I love that.
my daughter loves you. She's ready for the Pride in June, calls you the Rainbow Lady. I'm here for that. Like, with kids, honestly, kids are the most brutal. So actually, they'll be the ones to let you know if they're into it or not, because they're honest. They worse than we are. We're over here like, you look cute. They're like, you look ugly.
Right.
Okay, well, we don't talk about our.
Literally, they're so, even in cheer, they're so innocent that they don't even realize. They're like, wow, did you gain weight, Miss Carter? Like, you just have to accept it, because they don't mean it. They have no filter.
They really don't. And I also want to give out to Sierra, Trixie Valentine. That is what their child had called me, because they couldn't say Valentine. So I'm Trixie Valentine now. I'm changing my last name official.
Yes.
It's gonna happen. So no, and I think my favorite part of what you talked about was judgment. And it's who casts judgment. But then I think literally the thought that came up was, how do we handle judgment? Like, we constantly say, people are always going to judge us, it's going to be everywhere you go. And to me, it's always with the same narrative of like, suck it up and move on, or like, ignore it.
Yeah.
And in some instances, I agree. Like, there are some instances you just got to ignore it and move on. But there are other times that you can't. And to me, that's why this article and everything got so much press, is because we can't ignor it. Like, this is one of those times that we're getting judged, and it's like, what do we do about it? Just ignore it and walk away? Why? So people literally are lacking the education in this area around it, or the experience, all because somebody was judging and being judgmental.
Right.
And so the reason why I think of you is because we have these conversations, and you are so graceful in how you handle judgment. You really are. Like, you. So even you may not talk about this, and I hope you do, but there's times we're sitting there and you're like, sis, we're pretty and they're not. And I'm sitting there like, you absolutely. And then like, but then it also comes with the mentality of like, we're gonna like, it's not a spitefulness, it's a confidence, it's an empowering type thing you do, which is you encourage people from behind the scenes. You are the supportive structure that people need in their life to be like, you got this. And you don't, it's a good question of like, when you handle judgment, we're not like, it's not forefront, it's a lot of internal stuff, and you have to be a very compassionate person to deal with that and handle that. And I think you handle that so well. At least in my experience, there's been plenty of times you're like, let's actually put a plan together, let's actually think about what's happening and how we move forward, because there has been that times like, we're not backing down, because we had an incident where we had a venue tell us yes, right? They were like,
oh, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, I don't want to put names out there, but all of a sudden we had to move venues, because magically they didn't want drag there anymore, even though we sold out in a week. In 1 week we sold out. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we can't do this. This is going to be bad. And all those negative things came. And I remember you were like, we got this. We're going to handle this. We're going to show them they're missing out. And you handled that so well with me. And I honestly have to thank you for that.
Absolutely. Oh, I appreciate that. That does mean a lot, because as well, I love to uplift people, and I love to tell you do a good job, because I know with everything you do, you are stressed too sometimes, and I am stressed too. And I do feel like the best feeling is life is when somebody gives you a compliment. And I love helping other people uplift themselves, because we all need it. Like you said, I've learned to check myself, because what are we? Human. We're always going to be super reactive. Our emotions usually are going to hit first, and then we'll think about it later. But the struggle, especially, with us as gay people and queer people, we already have a lot of issues pent up, or things that we're going through. So unfortunately, those inner things that we have struggling with, sometimes that heightens those emotions when something happens to us and we're super reactive. We say stuff we don't mean. And then sometimes, we don't hold ourselves accountable for it. So one thing I've learned to do is yes, absolutely. I will 100% admit I have had moments of crap, but the best part of growth is when you can learn to check yourself and say, wow, I just did that. So you know what? I need to hold myself accountable and figure out how to do that better. But it is hard. It is a very hard thing to do. But I think the best way of like living your life is to learn those toxic behaviors or traits and to be able to hold yourself accountable for it and move forward.
Girl, I want to hug you. I love that. Like, yes to all of it. There's such a powerful thing to say when we have to be the ones. There was a quote somebody said when I heard them talk, and it's, as queer people, we're measured by how many hits we can take.
Yes.
And not by how many hugs we give.
Right.
And that spoke to me so much that when we are in those situations, it literally makes me think of what you just spoke about. It's like, we're taking all the punches, but we can't always be the ones that throw the punches back. And
right.
I'm a person, I don't want to be known for how many punches I can take, because you won't see the compassion I have. You'll see the armor I wear. And those are two different images. Sometimes they motivate differently, but I would rather be in a room where I walk in and people are like, oh, this person's going to tear me apart. And I'm going to be like, no, I'm going to help you. I'm going to hold everyone accountable. I'm going to show that compassion and that support. And I love the way you articulated that mindset of, we do have to pause and be like,
yes,
this is a really hard time, but I can't get into my old habits of trying to get something back. I have to move forward. I have to I don't like the term being a bigger person. I like the term of like showing improvement or showing growth, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And so actually one of the people are on. So Matthew, who is on, is one of the people who had the show. I'll highlight their comment. Matthew, I don't know how long you've been watching, but this is actually what had happened with your show is what has inspired us to talk about our tip 98, and tipping is a must today for glitter on my tips. And so like Matt said, they are going to move forward and trying to find a new place. And that's one of the best ways to do. And it's this comes into question of like, where's justice, right? Where's accountability? Where's inequities happening? Where are barriers that are coming up? Like in the work of DEI that I do, this is all the things I'm thinking about. But even you as a coach, like as a person who helps, you are inspiring, because as a coach, you definitely have to have the ability to be like, look, it's a tough crowd, but we have to figure out how to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You made my night, boo. Like, I love that. I want to be an audience. I'm like, okay, now keep talking, Asia, because I want to watch.
Absolutely.
I actually want to give a thing to the audience. So one of the things that I like to practice, I teach confidence in this area. And when we think about hate, we have to overcome with being courageous and confident and empowering and of ourselves. And you mentioned about how we have to sort of tell ourselves it'll be okay, or compliment ourselves, or we actually compliment others. But I think the biggest thing is like, yes, compliment others, but compliment yourself. So if you're in the chat listening, like, shout out a compliment you want to hear. Like, you want to hear for yourself. Give me your best compliment you can give yourself. Dig deep. I don't want to hear, I don't have any compliments. Yes, you do. You have to believe in them. Tell them, type them, please, please, please. But I'll ask you, Asia, what compliments could you give yourself in this situation? In times of hate and judgment, where do you find your best compliment?
So I'm going to give a little bit of a background of like what was my biggest life-changing experience. So this will be a tiny little bit deep. So in 2021, I lost my dad. He was 48 when he passed. Both of my parents got COVID. He did pass unexpectedly from COVID complications, and he just passed at home. No warning, no nothing. And for me, that's been such a hard, I guess, look back over the years of what happened to me over the course of a year, it was very, very, very difficult. So for me, I kind of had to start thinking like, this is a really early time in my life to lose my dad I wasn't even 30 yet. So for me, moving forward in life, I had to really take a big look in the mirror and see a lot of things, or just look at a lot of things that I feel like maybe I've never really paid attention to. And I had to be the one, like I said earlier, about checking yourself, you know. A lot of times we want to be like, wow, girl, that looks terrible or something, you know what I mean? And hey, we all do it. It's just a natural thing. Like kids, sometimes we just immediately say the first thing, you know, that pops into our head. But unfortunately, it's not an excuse as an adult, because we have more control over that than kids do. You know what I mean? So we need to be more self-aware. We need to be a little bit more accountable. And when we do make those mistakes, we absolutely need to. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to run to Facebook or, you know, to go make a public apology or whatever. And because sometimes we all know with social media and the people that make apologies, we absolutely know they don't mean it. But some do.
Who might you, I'm just saying, I don't say any names, but I'm like,
right. I'm not saying names, you little.
It's okay. I know it's not me, because I don't ever apologize on Facebook like this, so it ain't me.
Right. But yeah, oh gosh, I just lost track of what we were talking about.
My question for you was like, what compliments could you give yourself?
So the compliments that I start giving myself is when I get really in periods where I feel like, so this is another thing that like a lot of men experience too, is that it's that little thing in your head that says, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not good enough. And a lot of dads struggle with that too, you know, whether they're taking care of their kids, or it's just a natural thing that I've noticed. I've also struggled with that, and saying that you know, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you're not making enough money. So for me, I have to sit back and say, but look at all the stuff that I've done. Is that really somebody who hasn't been doing enough? You know, my life enrichment that I've had from just my experiences, I have to constantly tell myself, like, if you're nothing, you wouldn't have done this, or you wouldn't have done that. So you need to start giving yourself that pat on the back and say, I did that, you know. And sometimes that's just what we need, you know, in general, especially in the community, you know. It's very mean girls, and we both know that. And unfortunately, sometimes people, I know you know this for a fact. I know some people want to give people compliments, but sometimes it's that stigma of like, I have to be the best one or something like that. I can't give out compliments. You know what I mean? It's one of those weird situations where we want to try to do the best we can, but sometimes the delivery doesn't come out. You know what I mean? And it's easier to be like, look at her. She's so successful. You know, she's successful. I wonder where she got that money. Like that, you know, that little, it's more of jabs sometimes than it is trying to be compliments. And
there's like a comparative nature to
yes.
what we say. And it's interesting that you said, I don't want to cut you off, but it's interesting. No, it's interesting that your compliment for yourself is literally to tell yourself you're good enough. Not just good enough, you are good. Like, I don't like this idea of good enough, because it means there's a bar. Like, you are good.
Absolutely.
You are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We all, I mean, you've probably had those same feelings once in a while, even though because you're so busy and you do so much.
Yesterday, what are you talking about? I had them I had them yesterday. What are you talking about? I had them last night.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, because you're speaking to how sometimes the drag community and similar communities, queer communities, interracial communities judge each other, and yet on top of that, we are doing that to each other, while on top of people are actually hating us for who we are. So it's like we have that set here, and then we have another layer, and it's sometimes it gets chaotic and feels very icky, intense. But I think knowing, and I love the analogy of like, if you weren't doing enough, then like you're like, the receipts show I am. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
proof in the pudding. There is, like, you are like, I have my receipts, I got my texts. Like, who are we talking about? And
Right.
there's like a reassurance there that I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Unfortunately, it's that dark side, you know, it's that white and black, that yin and yang, because we're Asian. But it's that sometimes that black side just tells you you're not enough, you know what I mean? And you got to pull yourself back to make it equal, you know? It's a lot of, I think it's one of the biggest things we struggle with, especially with the part of depression and stuff like that. Sometimes we let that control more of what we want, and sometimes it's hard to shut it off. But I think sometimes if you can acknowledge it, I
Yeah.
think that's the starting stone and the stepping stone where you can start getting better at, you know, being more positive, being more on the light side, being nicer.
Yeah, I think speaking to kindness, that's exactly where, like, I remember last year was my first year I got a protest at an actual drag event that I hosted and produced.
Oh, okay.
And I remember sitting there, and I went to the back of like and I just broke down. I
Yeah.
ended up crying, breaking down, because there was like, leading up to it, there was just so much negativity. This is where like the Tennessee start thing happened, and all, like, it was just
Right.
constantly, drag is bad. This is awful. These are non-human beings. It was going down. While at the same time, I'm also dealing with like trying to be the best, or trying to be what I want to be, and like growing. And I had enough. I snapped, and I just went to the back, and I'm just like sobbing, and I'm like, I need to be stronger. And then it makes me think of like, I don't have to be like, who am I going to be stronger for? Am I being
Mm-hmm.
stronger for all the people I'm trying to uplift and support in the community? Am I being stronger for myself? And for me, it literally came down to I don't want to be strong in this moment. I don't want to be strong in this moment. I want to be vulnerable in this
Yep.
moment. I want people to see my humanity, and that when I say we're human, it literally means we are flawed. We're not
Yep.
flawless. And I remember after that, I like dried my tears, and I switched my number up, and was like, we're going to do a different number, and a number that has meaning and power.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you get a standing ovation of 300 people in a room because you let yourself be vulnerable in a performance, to me, that was my way to fight back to the people protesting who did not see the performance. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, like that day, I remember sitting there feeling like afterwards, like, I am more than what they are judging on. I am more than what they are seeing. I am more than what they make us out to be, or make me out to be, as a both drag and queer person. And I think that speaks to like historical understandings of why queer people are constantly have these stories of coming out and transitioning and fighting to be who they are, because it doesn't just stop personally. It's been all over. It's been forthcoming. And you know, I think if I think about my compliment to myself is that I'm compassionate and understanding, no matter what people think. Like, there are so many people I tell, I don't have to convince you I'm understanding. I know I can understand your situation, and if I can't understand your situation, I will do my best to walk that mile in your shoes. Even if I can't, I will do what I can. And then I'll hold myself accountable, because there are spaces where you have to say, I literally can't go what you're going through, but I will find kindness. I will support you. I will give you compassion. I'll give you love.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Absolutely. You are very compassionate. wait,
Right.
my tears.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Right. And when you can't fight that fight, this is Trixie. When I'm out of drag, security. I'm your backup security.
Oh, for real. Like, the way you look, I'll be like, this is my bodyguard.
Take care of
Asia,
it.
take your wig off, girl. Take your wig off.
Right.
I'm not going to take you serious with that wig on.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. So we actually had someone who gave us a compliment, and for themselves. This is a compliment they would give themselves, that their hard work creates the best success. And I love that. 100%. Hard work
Absolutely.
creates the best success. It
Yes.
absolutely does. It absolutely does.
Mhm.
And it will help you grow. And then we actually have Aurora Sterling watching, who, you know, I feel that I've been called every name that you could imagine last week. I bet, girl. I promise you, I've been in the same position you are, and I do not Like, I'm here for you. Like, I hear as a sport, but also I'm like,
Mhm. Yeah,
like,
right.
as the Catholics say,
Absolutely.
praise Jesus.
Right, right. Yes, Amanda hit that. Absolutely. Yes, uplift. What was the other one I
Yes.
saw? Yes, always, she said totally 100%. Yes, always room for improvement. That's a very good
Always room for improvement.
thing to look
Absolutely.
for.
For our audience, if you have any questions, thoughts, or anything that resonated, put them in the chat now, because if you have questions for us, we're here. We're definitely here for you. And we have about 15 minutes left. Amanda's compliment. So Amanda's compliment for herself is that I go for the goal. That go for the goal that I want to accomplish and get it done and exceed to the best of my ability. I love that because it
Mhm.
speaks to that we are playing at our own pace. We're not playing at the pace of others. And this is one of those situations, like, we have to think about what can we do? What is the capacity that we have? What can we work on and grow from? Mhm.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot. I wasn't sure where our conversation was going to go today. I do have one more question for you, Asia.
Absolutely.
And so when we think about how this tip is like, drag is not harmful, because it's really not harmful in the sense, like, it's not harming a single person.
Right.
But I will say there is another tip in there, that's drag is not a contact sport. So just putting it out there, it could be harmful, but it's to the other performers of who's picking who up.
Right. Yeah, come at me. Yeah.
Right.
It might
Although
be.
if you pick me up during a performance, I'm
Right,
gonna be
right.
mad you did it as Asia. I don't want Asia to pick me up. I want you.
Right.
I want the
Absolutely.
non-Asia too.
Wig off. It's fine.
uh, and that's not hurting me. That's just exciting.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I think my question I want to ask you is, what do you do to cope? How do you what is the factor you cope and or heal when you're faced with hate, when you are faced with a challenge that does take a toll? What is something helps you heal? What is something that helps you heal? I think that's the question I want to ask.
Okay. I think what helps me heal is that previous thing we talked about, is the compassion thing. A lot of people that we have encountered over the years, not only when like when it comes to events or something like that, these people that lash out or act out towards us or say threats or something like that, sometimes what do we do on our community is we try to meet fire with fire, and sometimes we just try to combat it at the same level. And I realize sometimes I have to sit back as well and think, maybe sometimes those people just don't know enough, and maybe me being confrontational back doesn't help. Me meeting them and saying, okay, you know what, I see the way you think about it. However, what does that have to do with me as a person? If you know me outside of this, why does that have to interfere? What changes your perception of me when really all I do is I'm a performer? I'm an entertainer. There's always that little wall that it's like you there's not, you can't understand. They don't want to meet you over the wall. They just want to put a wall up. Oh, you do drag. Wall up. Don't want to be any part of it. That's gay. That's this. That, you know what I mean? And like I said, sometimes you have to sit back and be like, you know what? Maybe they just don't know enough. And that's something you have to kind of say, I'm sorry for you, that's your growth. That's your internal issue that you have yet to deal with. But I'm not going to meet you with the same malice you gave me. I'm just going to say, you know what? We, to each their own. We have our differences, but I would never hate you as much as you seem to hate me, and that's okay. That's something you can work on. It's not always my job to help you progress through your insecurities. But I think that's one thing I think about too, is I want to be like, oh yeah, rage, like, let me meet you at the bridge. Let's sort this out. But you have to sit back and be like, you know what? It's okay that you're still growing. and I don't need to meet you with the same ignorance. And I think that's another thing I like to,
Ugh.
it's that check yourself thing, you know? Don't
I,
meet ignorance with ignorance, because what happens? You're both hot-headed. It's never gonna work. It's never gonna get solved.
I
So
want
for
that
me,
on a
that's a
shirt.
healing
I want
thing.
that on a shirt so bad.
Absolutely. Don't meet ignorance with ignorance. TM. Trixie.
Oh, okay. So no, I love that. You speak to patience. You speak to
Yes, I
having
think that's a big,
patience.
you touching on that really quick before, that's
Mhm,
one of the biggest another growth things. Learn patience. I'm not
mhm,
kidding you. Learn to have patience with people. Imagine dealing with toddlers. You have to
mhm.
have the same patience sometimes. They don't know enough, and sometimes neither do adults. You have to be the one to teach people. You have to be the one, you have to be the Messiah. Teach the people, help them understand. Don't be ignorant. That's the biggest thing. Just like Michael Jackson, don't be ignorant.
I can't with you.
But
I
yeah, go
I
ahead. Sorry.
I know as an educator, I'm constantly met with ignorance and it's out of love, right? I'm a
Mhm,
big believer and you don't know what you don't know, but if you don't know something, don't attack it. Like lean in with curiosity, lean in with wanting to find out the truth rather than wanting to find out what you're judging. Because
mhm,
when you lean into something with judgment, you are literally harming the thing you are judging, the environment, the whatever it might be. That is where we end up finding our mistakes in not being able to recover, because there is a way of what I know is sometimes what we say we can't take back. We
right.
can ask for forgiveness, and at the end of the day we have to choose if we're ready to forgive someone. And for
Mhm.
me, like, forgiveness isn't technically for me part of a healing process. It is and it's not, it depends how you look
Yeah.
at it. But when I'm met with hate, what helps me heal is the one, physically actually like changing my environment, going for a
Mhm.
walk, going in nature, or like cleaning is a really big thing that helps me process and feel comforting and better, and staying organized. That's why I'm so crazy, because I'm just constantly staying organized.
Yep.
But I think outside of that, what heals me is letting go. That it, like you said, like when we find a place that we can let go of someone else's hate, we're no longer like they're meant to hold it. Not we're not
Yeah.
meant to hold other people's hate.
Mhm.
We are meant to either confront it or like figure it out. Like as humans, we literally are designed to figure out solutions and problems.
Mhm.
And so when someone is when I met with hate, what helps me heal is this is not my problem to fix.
Yes.
I am not here to fix this. I'm not here to hold on to it. I'm not here to tie it in a nice bow for you and say thank you, thank you, no thank you.
Yeah.
And I
It's
love
exhausting, I know.
yeah, I'm just sitting here like, but
Absolutely.
I want to talk about healing because we don't talk about that enough, specifically in the drag world. We don't talk about how we go through these things because even when these incidents, everyone's like, "What's your opinion on this? Opinion or fact? Like, do you want the fact about this? Because I'll give you the fact about this. I'll give you the fact that
Oh,
this
yeah.
person is probably prejudiced towards us, and it's
Mhm.
my life is not an opinion.
Mhm.
I can tell you the fact about my life. I can tell you a fact about my art. Like you, that brings me back to what you said. I can show you what I've done in my life and line it up and say, these are facts. These are not an opinion. And
Mhm.
so, and to me, that's another way to combat ignorance is through facts. And facts of our lived experiences is real. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean we don't have feelings, because feelings are not facts. But, you know, there is that fine line balance of regulating your feelings and processing through facts.
Mhm. Yes, 100%. And me, I can say as a Virgo, sometimes I can take somebody's, it takes one person or one comment to ruin your day, your week, because we're overthinkers and sometimes, but I've gotten better with that over time. Over the years I've gotten more mature in that aspect. Not letting one something that somebody said feel like that was such a heavy attack, and
Mhm,
that's a growth, that's a moment of growth,
mhm,
trust me.
mhm.
Not feeling, what is the word, not feeling so defensive, or so like feeling like you're attacked constantly and like in such a victim state. Um, but sometimes it's hard, you know. It's everybody has their struggle, and that's one thing that I've learned to get better at is not taking so much of that one comment to heart, because
Yeah.
sometimes it can be very detrimental, not only to your, you know, mental state, but like then you take that comment and you replay it in your head when if they say like you're just not good enough, and then you say that you're not good enough and you believe it, and then that's where it starts.
It's so true, and we're gonna have to wrap it up soon. But speaking of that one comment, I literally teach confidence in one of my workshops I do as Mixed Kelly Core Education. um, and and I just did this with a bunch of college students, and one of the activities that I do is literally we have to say an I am statement. And you have to say it out loud. You gotta say it like Lauren Hess says it all the time at ID. Say it with your chest. You have to say it with your chest, and it's whatever you can think of yourself, like whatever adjective or word or verb or whatever comes to mind, say it with your chest. And so when we start saying it ourselves, when we get those negative words, it kind of puts that shield up, because it's like, oh, you're telling me that, but I tell myself this every day. I'm telling myself I'm great every day. So when people are coming in with that self-doubt, it combats it. It confronts it. It's easier to be like, "Ooh, this is not my problem. This is you problem."
Yes. And another tip on top of that, like that Jake
Keep
teaches.
talking. I'm listening.
You're good. You're good. Another thing that like adds to his confidence thing that he teaches. There's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. Okay. Cockiness is not the same as being confident. Cockiness is being too overly confident and just expecting that you are always at a higher level than everybody else. Confidence is just being like, you know what, you've done this a couple times, you know what you're doing. But cockiness is a very ugly trait. Cockiness comes across really ugly, and that's another thing, like working in backstage with some shows, sometimes confidence is not the same as cockiness, and it does not translate the same. At least, how do you feel about that?
We're like changing. We went from like fans of drag tip to like backstage etiquette.
Right.
We really did it all today.
Right.
I think for me, people who think they're confident but come off cocky. Sometimes we're not aware of it, right? There's been times where like, ooh, girl, you coming off like very strong. I get it. You're pretty.
Yeah.
I get it. You've been doing it for 5 months. But I think sometimes some people need to be told like, hey, like cut that out. Like you're coming off a specific way, and if that's the way you want to come off, then that's a whole different story.
Right. Good for you. Like somewhere else. Go to somebody else.
We will applaud you. But I think for me, in this situation, if I think about cockiness to confidence, is you don't have to say it if you're confident.
Yes.
When I walk into a room, I do not need to tell people my accolades, how long I've been doing drag, where I've been, who I've performed with, what I've worked on, what I've done. I just show up and I'm prepared. I'm ready. I'm me. And it's not my job to convince somebody the star I am. You know what I mean? So that's what I think about confidence. And so
confidence is something what you bring to the table, but without being like, I've done a million things that like, you don't have to tell me that, but I know that about you.
It's not a comparison mindset. I hope people don't ever like sit there and go, I'm not as good as so-and-so, or like if someone's like, I'm not good as Trixie, I'm like, ew. Like, you should never have that mentality. You could say, I'm inspired and want to grow like she does. I want what she has. That's inspiration.
Absolutely.
But it would be my job not to put that back onto someone and go, you're less than. That's where cockiness outbeats confidence. Confident people sit there and will help, grow, help the seeds bloom, help everything flourish. Cocky people are the ones that want to cut other people down. And that's, to me, the difference.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that statement.
Well, Lisa, thank you. But I do. Hey, girl, I will always tell my accolades, you know, that I have been on the mic, but it's just filler.
Yeah. Tell them
Also,
about your PhD again.
well, I didn't. I hate you. Uh, um, but also brag about yourself. But I'm a person. Tell me about your successes. I really do want to hear about people. Like when someone comes in and go, I just did this. I'm like,
yes.
let me share,
Absolutely.
let me hug you, let me give you a high five, let me say on the mic what you've done. Like, let me give you your validation because we should definitely be doing that. That also, to me, that's also another process of healing is when we support others. It does fuel it. Some people can fill their cups by helping others, but don't let others use you. I will put that out there. That's the flip side. So,
Yes.
all right, Asia, we are wrapping up here. What are some last words you want to give these children? You're not really children. The audience is just a drag term of understanding, but children.
Right. God, don't tell everybody we have children in the audience. We're gonna get canceled
Children.
immediately.
As I'm speaking to my drag child right now, children. What do you want to tell these children?
Trixie Valentine was canceled this evening.
This will be me. I better hit front pages.
Right.
I'm gonna get a good news article out of it.
So a type of leaving statement I would say to end the night with is just be who you are, but be self-aware, be accountable, be human because we are. That's how do you learn without being human? You have to make a mistake, right? You don't learn from it unless you make a mistake. So just learn to be accountable, learn to get better at being kind. I guess that's the best thing I can say. Teach people, like we talked about earlier, just help people. You don't have to create fights. You don't have to create conflict, let them do that, just be a good soul, use your heart, use your mind. You know what you are capable of doing. You know how to spread kindness. It's so hard. I know it's so much easier to say, wow, she's ugly than to be like, you know what? She's actually a kind soul. It's so easy, but just learn to check yourself. How do you get better? It's 2024. 2020 was not that long ago. And it's a different life now, unfortunately. Like it's different. So just that's what I would end with for me is coming from me. Learn, just try to grow as much as you can.
Asia,
how about you?
You're so sweet. I love you. For me, related to this episode, I will put it out there. Drag is not harming anyone and it's not hurtful. No. It's an art form and it needs to be respected the same way other art forms are, same way as singing, same way as cheering, same as gymnastics, same as concerts in theater, same as mime, same as magicians. Like the magic we bring should be at the same respect and level and not seen as an other because there is a queer rooted aspect to it. And with that, drag is not a crime. I will also put that out there. Like, 100%. I mean, it is a crime. Our looks do look criminal, but it's not a crime.
100%.
And but with that, when I think about how we confront hate, how we confront that negativity, we really do have to do that self-reflection. We do have to sometimes say, I can't do this alone. We do have to say, you know what? If I'm going to be the one who shows resilience, I'm going to make sure I'm a leader rather than a follower and push back and know you have the energy. Because one thing I will say, if you can't do it, get out of my way. And I say that with the utmost respect. If you are going to stand in my way of changing problems, get out of my way. And I say it with love, because I have the energy to do so, but we have to be aware of that. And then I think the last thing I want to say, whoever's watching or left, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. This is Asia Vuitton Spice. You can find her on your social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook. I believe you have a TikTok, all of the things. And I am your host, Trixie Valentine on Glitter on My Tips. Come on, Asia. No, you're supposed to shimmy when I say glitter on my tips. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was your moment.
Yeah, no, it's our moment. I mean, it is my moment, but it's ours.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but with that, thank you, everyone. Reminder, Glitter on My Tips is all about the business, professional, and leadership side of drag. Thank you all for watching tonight. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, guys. Thank you.